Hi, everyone. We're here. We're not quite starting yet. I have this is like a side question for John. Now, John, you just graduated from high school, is that correct?
Close, 2 weeks away.
Oh, okay. So you are still in high school, so you're not quite a recent graduate, a soon to be graduate.
Yep.
Well, that's exciting. And I've got here that you were working in the cafeteria at your high school. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, good. So that's correct. I just wanted to check a couple of things here. So I think I'm set for the introductions. And we're going to give people a few minutes who are heading on. Now, Fallon was asking about lunch. Have you had your lunch, Fallon? Fallon's not answering me.
No, I haven't had lunch yet.
What do you think you might have for lunch today?
I'm not really hungry today, so I might just do a smoothie.
Oh, that sounds good. What's your favorite flavor?
I like anything berry, to be honest. I like strawberry banana, I like blueberry.
Ooh, that sounds good. I
I'm
like
into the green goddess smoothie.
green goddess. This is a new one on me.
The green goddess got the avocado, the pineapple.
I like pineapple in just about anything. And so, John, what do you think you'll have for lunch today?
I'm really not sure. I have to figure that out. Once I get home, whatever.
What about you, Rose?
I have no clue, to be honest with you. You gotta be honest, I haven't thought about lunch yet. I just had a little cinnamon bun.
So if you like pineapple, do you eat it on your pizza too?
Oh, yeah. Do you?
Yes. Yeah, I'll eat it if I have to, yeah. I'm more of a pepperoni person though.
Well, I was always big on pepperoni, but I don't know. I think I'm moving on over to being a pineapple pizza person. And there are those who think that that's just dreadful.
It's blasphemous, Nancy.
Blasphemous. Not just dreadful, blasphemous.
I've had shrimp and pineapple quesadillas, and they were amazing.
Oh, that sounds good. Okay, now we are all officially hungry. I suggest everybody in the chat would like to introduce yourselves and maybe share with us what you're thinking about for lunch. That could be fun. Now I have lots of great ideas about what I might eat for lunch.
You just confused me more. So too many options is never a good thing for me.
So do you have food in your refrigerator? Jamal's refrigerator broke temporarily, and he was without a refrigerator there for over a week. I can't believe it.
Yeah, that
But
was
now it's working. They
yeah.
found the part. It's working. So is your lunch in the refrigerator?
Possibly. I don't know if I want what's in my refrigerator. This is the problem with having a refrigerator and not having a refrigerator. When you don't have a refrigerator, it's easy to make an excuse to order out.
I have leftovers from dinner. That's going to be my lunch. I love leftovers.
Yeah, that's the bad thing for me. I end up eating the same thing for dinner like 4 nights in a row.
Yeah, I like that though. How are we doing? What time is it? 12:02. Should we give him a couple more minutes?
12:02. I want to give them a couple more minutes. We'll try to get started in a couple of minutes. I want to give people enough time. This is a little bit different than what we're used to doing because we are going on a Friday. So we are going to try to give people a little bit more time to get in. And then we'll get started. Rose, was your nephew happy yesterday?
He was so happy. Like He had us go on the log. It wasn't hot enough for it, but we did it. I got drenched. It was awesome. Nobles is always a good time.
Oh,
What amusement park was it?
Knobles.
Knoebels, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
that's a good one to eat at too.
it is. Yeah. Yeah, we had some cookies. Some cookies and some cheese fries.
Nice.
I blueberry.
Oh, an anti-pineapple person has just entered the chat.
Firmly.
Firmly. Honey.
Ah. Well, okay, I know we haven't like officially started, but let me officially start with a question before we officially start. So who I need for somebody to tell me, or each of you, or whatever you want to do, tell me about what is Youth Revolution. Please tell me.
Youth Revolution is a peer-based youth group that is focused on advancing the resources and supports available to the age group 16 to 25 in Luzerne County. So it started off with the youth voice and just capturing those voices and those needs. And it's becoming the programming that is inspired by the needs of those youth who share their voices and their stories with countless professionals, with peers like me and Fallon and John, with youth that we work with directly. And we're using all these voices and experiences in order to just offer a safe space and cultivate these young people to be successful with the resources that are available to them right in this area.
How do people find out about Youth Revolution?
How do people find out about it?
Yeah.
It's a great question. So right now, we are kind of still in our beginning stages of just formulating how we're going to be operating. But right now, we find people through our interviewing process the most. So like we go out and we interview youth who are just joining into services in the area, whether it's psych rehab, or we even get referrals from other youth who know youth who are struggling and in need of support and resources, whether they're homeless or they're having hardships in their home and they need more extra support. These are some of the ways that people are finding out about Youth Revolution, but also we are planning to do more events, community styled events that are going to basically create more communal spaces for Youth Revolution to get to know people as well.
And of course, you're going to share all this with other counties in the Commonwealth so that they might get, to take advantage of some of your good ideas, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Youth Revolution should be everywhere, just like a youth move, national.
I like it.
Hey, you go,
I like
Rose.
it.
I like that.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, well, we are going to officially get started now. And with that, I would like to welcome everyone to our virtual speaker series for 2024, provided by the PA Care Partnership in association with the Office of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, which is also known as OMSAS. In January, we had the first in a series of webinars, Healthy Transitions, Preparing for Instant Adulthood at 18 years of age. And today we are continuing that conversation. Today's moderators are myself, Jamal Ford, and Nancy Massey of the PA Care Partnership. And with that, I will turn it over to Nancy to introduce our presenters today.
Thank you, Jamal. First, let me thank everyone who's joining us today. We are, like the first of this series of webinars, a little bit less formal, and we're going to ask you if you have comments or questions at any time to throw them in the Q&A. Jamal's going to be in in charge of the Q&A, and we're going to do our best to answer all the questions that didn't get answered last time and do get answered today, do get asked today. And we are very excited to have this amazing staff here today. And we're going to learn about what they've done since January, where they are today, what they have learned, and where they intend to go. You may remember our 3 speakers from the January webinar: Rose Daniels, Rose, wave, Fallon Nunnemucker, Fallon, and John Prater. Okay, first, let me introduce you to Rose Daniels, who is a youth and young adult coordinator for Youth Revelation. Rose is currently the youth drop-in coordinator for the Catholic Youth Center and the youth and young adult coordinator for the Youth Revolution, which is part of the Luzerne, Wyoming County's Healthy Transitions Grant. Rose's love for the arts in her community inspired her to start a business called Breakout Art Movement. If you were here in January, you heard one of her poems, where she focuses on bringing the healing power of poetry and other forms of creation to people of all ages. Rose continues to empower the youth in her community through opportunities for leadership, mentorship, and expression. She is now the 3rd vice president of the Wilkes-Barre chapter of the NAACP, where her outreach efforts for the BIPOC community are elevated. She works closely with the community to create and empower the next generation of youth leaders. You'll see them sitting next to her, and activists for human rights. Welcome, Rose. Next, let me introduce you to Fallon Nunnemucker, who is a certified peer specialist, and she is also on the Youth Revolution Advisory Board. Fallon is currently a counselor at the Catholic Youth Center, in the child care programs and the Youth Drop-In Center. Fallon previously held the role of a certified peer specialist in the capacity of the Luzerne County Juvenile Wellness Treatment Court. Fallon became a certified peer specialist in 2021. She is a person in recovery and aspires to become an occupational therapist. Fallon enjoys hiking, kayaking, reading, journaling, and advocating for youth and young adults. And our 3rd speaker today is John Prater, who is a true youth advocate, and he is a member of Youth Revolution. John is a soon-to-be high school graduate in a couple of weeks, a youth advocate through Youth Revolution and the Catholic Youth Center's Youth Drop-In Center. John currently works in the kitchen of his high school in the Wilkes-Barre area. John also works summers and holidays in their kitchen at the Catholic Youth Center. You may have noticed that John enjoys culinary arts, learning about different cultures, which of course is all about food, social norms in different situations, business techniques, and mental health. John also enjoys learning new exercise techniques, workouts, and gaming. John is the current Youth Council President of the Wilkes-Barre chapter of the NAACP. He is the founder of the local food distribution program For Kids, by Kids. John was the 2022 Youth Leader of the Year with the Luzerne, Wyoming County System of Care. John attended the 2023 NAACP National Conference. Again, let me remind you that at any time during this webinar, please add your questions to the Q&A, which you will find by rolling your mouse along the bottom of the Zoom screen. And if you have any problems, issues, and again, I'm being told that I'm hard to hear. Let me get loud and nasty. And hopefully you're hearing me better now. I'm going to raise my voice. And I'm going to be in the chat throughout the entire webinar. Any questions, any problems, any issues, I'm here. Just ask me in the chat. All right, I am now going to turn it over to Jamal, who will take over from here. Thank you, Jamal.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate you as always. We're going to ask some questions of our panelists that were based on questions that we received after the first webinar, and people wanted to know about some things regarding the actual grant that you guys procured up there in Luzerne County. So, Fallon, when we're talking about applying for the grant, what was it like having to apply for the grant? What was that process like?
So Youth Revolution worked with the county to submit for the grant. And so it kind of started with a research phase where we were doing different interviews, different focus groups, surveys, things like that, just so we could get an idea of the needs. And then we moved into finding out what local resources we already have, what ones we need. And so it was a lot of research figuring out, and we came to realize that the need was even greater than we expected. So the next task was just figuring out how we should split up the money and what we should spend it on. So after that, the most important thing that we found was submitting the grant. The county systems of care really took care of submitting it in the application process, but our role in it was figuring out the exact needs and then also ensuring that it was a youth-run organization. So that's how Youth Revolution came about. So that was our main role, and that was just making sure that a youth-run organization was established. And we wanted to make sure that the advisory board for this grant must have at least 51% of the youth representation. But currently, I believe we're running at 65%.
Nice. 65% youth versus 35% adult voice is awesome. I mean, the fact that you guys have been able to get that many youth to participate out up in your county is an awesome thing. I always found it a little bit more difficult, especially from a state perspective, to get youth to participate in, and it seems like you guys sort of got some magic up there I need to tap into. So did you need to know anything before you applied for the grant that you didn't know? Anything that you hadn't known?
Something like that we didn't know that we needed to know for the funds of grant.
So even when we're talking about looking at the needs of what is going happening in your county, when you initially thought about applying for the grant, did you think it had to be one thing versus you said you did some research and figuring out what was actually the needs of the county, as opposed to what some of the stipulations may have been for applying for the grant? Was it a little bit easier to get the things that you did apply for? How do you think that went?
I think that the grant itself expanded even more than what was originally intended. I know the Youth Advocacy Squad originally was just asking for more help specifically with the youth that were aging out of the CYC drop-in. And then it really turned into, over time, through more research and through more conversation, to just include as a wide scope all transition age youth between Luzerne and Wyoming counties. I think the biggest learning curve that we had was that's when we really started figuring out that it actually is difficult to engage all of the transition age youth and get a fair representation of that. And the other thing that was almost a challenge for us was, I guess, coming up with the focus group questions. I know that took a lot of work, or the survey questions, figuring out how to simplify it, or how there was a lot that we had to learn there. And then finally, figuring out that some of the needs that we mentioned, we actually had programs existing in our county that could take care of that. So trying to figure out how to navigate that, trying to figure out how to make it accessible and educate ourselves on all of those resources, that has been very time consuming too. And it's been worth it, of course. I guess time consuming wouldn't be the right word for it, but we've had to put a lot of effort into just meeting with people in the community and meeting with administrators and different agencies and learning what we already have. But I think at the end of the day, it's actually created a nice sense of pride. I feel like we went from feeling very like there's so much that we need, there's so much that needs to be accomplished. And I think something that we have learned is that we have more support in the community than we thought we did.
That's that's awesome. If you can remember, and if you don't, it's quite fine. If you can remember when you first did the survey, how many, like around how many questions do you think y'all had on there versus how many ended up on the survey?
We literally, okay, so when we were tasked with coming up with this survey, because some of the members had experience with the Youth Advocacy Squad, like I was one of the people who helped structure the Youth Advocacy Squad, and we even came up with the name too. But that's a throwback. But so from the experience that we had from those couple of years of working with the youth in the area and learning how to strategically plan and structure things, but then also getting to know how to engage with those youth and figuring out what some of those needs were, we kind of had a mental template. So we took all of those things and we broke them down into sections. So we had like a couple of sections actually, and then each section had a few questions, and the sections all represented different aspects of life that are prevalent to TAY youth. So what we wanted to do was make sure that we structured it in a way that we weren't just asking the questions and like potentially just setting ourselves up to get answers that are not direct as we need. Mm-hmm. So we figured that it would be important for us to also help the youth identify when we ask them, what are your needs? They need to know what their goals are. So we thought it was important to also help them identify their goals in this survey as well at the same time, to kind of cross compare. Okay, this is my need, what's blocking my need, and how do I get there? So that helped us kind of identify certain kinds of resources that we might have not noticed were needs. So because of that, we had like 75 questions. We literally had like a lot, and it was structured to be a focus group setting, so we could go through it with the youth in a smaller group of like 12 youth per sit down, and we created a presentation and we created a online version. So we kind of worked with different ways to make sure it was accessible to all the youth we were going to be working with, but also just making sure it captures their voice fully, and not just based on their needs, but like based on their goals and the issues that come up when it comes to attaining those goals, because we wanted them to understand what we meant by needs. When you say you have these needs, the reasons why our needs are because of those obstacles that come up. And how can we now use that to help dismantle those obstacles, or, find the right supports to connect them to? So yeah, we had a lot of questions because of all of that.
I just know sometimes when you're putting together a survey, it's like, we need to ask this, we need to ask this, we need to ask this. And next thing you know, you got like 300 questions, and then it's like, nobody's taking this survey. How do we get it to a point where we can get people to actually take it, and so we can get the information that we're looking for? So I know that had to be like a really stressful thing going through that process. Nancy had a question for you all.
Okay, I have two questions. So first, I'm very curious about what you were just discussing about the focus group, and having done hundreds of them, literally. When you say you had 75 questions, was your intent to go through all 75 of those questions, Or were those questions there dependent upon how the people responded to initial questions?
So initially we had so many questions and we didn't want to be overwhelming. So we ended up sectioning them off and making sure that any questions that were related to each other, we would put them in the same section and we would go section by section. So it ended up being less than 75 questions for the actual presentation because of how we were able to organize it and make it more digestible for those focus groups. So
that sounds really great, Rose.
yeah.
Great job. Okay, so now here's my second question. So I'm kind of circling back to this issue of having 65% youth, because that was just a phenomenal question. In my opinion, that could be a whole webinar. And I was looking at some of my notes as I was preparing for today and writing up some of what needed, the content that we needed. And I was reminded of what I said in the first webinar in January, which was, of all of the meetings that I sit in and people say there are no youth don't get involved, yada, yada, yada. And I think, yeah, and so did you ask them? Did you invite them? You know, and that somehow that question never gets answered. And I'm thinking that what you said about having the 65% is, can you tell me if starting out as youth in this process, not a bunch of adults who got together and decided what the youth needed and then invited them, but as youth who started out in the beginning and said, we need to do this, how that impacted you getting to the 65%? Or did it?
I would say that it has impacted us getting to that 65%. And well, for the work that we specifically do at the Youth Drop-In Center, that gives us access to so many youth in this age group, like so many. And they become very much invested into what we're doing because they directly are affected by the work we do with them. And if it wasn't for this program, I'm not sure how exactly we would get the same kind of feedback that we do. Like the referrals that we get, and this is just from a community viewpoint, because we also get referrals from professionals as well for youth to come to our programming, but just seeing how creating a space, a community-based space for youth to explore their social and emotional needs creates a hub for us to engage them in these processes. That is like, I think that is completely how we are able to accomplish what we are able to accomplish. Having those connections, living in the community with these youth, being able to come across people who are in need and them knowing that they can come to you as a resource. This is how we're able to capture youth voice in this area.
That's fantastic, Rose. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I hope that a lot of people heard it and it helps. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think the trust you've built within your community with the youth and young adults is phenomenal. To be able to do the things that you're doing, to get youth and young adults to stick and stay when, you know, that seems to be an area that a lot of people struggle with throughout the state. Y'all should be commended for that for sure. So Rose, as far as the work of the grant is concerned, what are you guys doing currently? And do you have anything planned for the immediate future?
Absolutely. Currently, we are starting our Youth Move chapter for the Youth Revolution to just network them with a larger network of more youth voices all over the country, which is so beautiful. I think it's a really awesome opportunity for our youth to really elevate what they're doing to another level. That's one of the main things we're working on currently, but also we are still building up our infrastructure, our vision for how the Youth Revolution is going to run. How is our drop-in center going to function? what are the needs and skills we're going to cultivate into that programming? What is it going to look like? So we are very much still in our planning stages, and our drop-in center will be the next big thing that we are doing, is going to be opening our doors to up to 25-year-olds. And that is also just something that we're working on. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add? What are some of our current things we're doing?
No, really said it.
I mean, yeah, it's all about outreach right now. So on top of that, we just attend whatever community events that are appropriate for us, different, especially ones that are mental health related or transition youth related. Different kinds of outreach. We attend different conferences, different trainings, anywhere that we're going to come in contact with either youth or with agencies or programs we want to cooperate with. But because we have our advisory board, the youth actually, we met and we wrote down our bylaws and we wrote down how decisions are made. So we don't just take on any event, period. We actually have a decision-making process where we choose and we reassess what's our vision, what's our mission. Does this correlate with that or not? And that's when we decide to do that. We were concerned that maybe we would start taking on too much and things maybe not super related to what we are. So that's very important. If you're going to start something like Youth Revolution, is make sure you decide how you're going to make those decisions and how you're going to choose which things to go to, because we have a very full, flourishing community when it comes to mental health services. So we, right now it's all about outreach, but also just kind of, reaching out and meeting with different youth in the community, just whoever you come across, period, because that's where you're going to have the most meaningful connections. Sometimes it's going to be when you least expect it. So just kind of always be ready to encounter new people.
It's awesome. I think you make a good point about, staying true to who you are. Because I think sometimes, a lot of organizations will get lost in that. And for y'all to be just starting out as a young organization and planning to do some things, remembering that part is a really good reminder for I think everybody who's listening to remember what it is that you started this thing for. That's big. Rose, I know the last time that we had the webinar, which I couldn't really be a big part of because I was having some connection issues that day. You spoke about the minority community in your area. And there were some people who wanted to know, have you learned anything specifically about the minority community in your area in order to address the needs that may be apparent there?
Absolutely. I learn every single day that I get to work with the youth in our community, because the youth really represent the heart of our community, and how we treat the youth is absolutely going to be a reflection of how they receive the community as they go and grow into our community. So I've learned a lot, and I get a little bit emotional when I think about some of the things that I've been able to, vicariously experience by listening to the youth, and some things that I'm concerned with. One in specific, a statistic that still really haunts me is in 2022, I believe the statistic is from, 5.6 times more likely. Black students are 5.6 times more likely to get suspended from school than any of their white counterparts. Why is this statistic important? When I sit with the youth in my program and they come to me and they say, Ms. Rose, I haven't been, I'm like, hey, how's school? And they say, I haven't been in school for weeks because I got suspended. Why'd you get suspended? I got in a fight. This is a recurring response to how our youth are dealing with their problems. What does that say to youth about their mental health, their experiences that are allowing these kind of behaviors to be prevalent? And I question our ability as a community to meet these youth where we need them, where we need to meet them in order to help them take advantage of programming that will help our youth handle their anger and not just label them as bad kids.
Mm-hmm.
I question our ability as a community to see how these statistics affect the minority community in this city, in this county, you know, and the sentence, prison, school to prison pipeline. I see that with how we deal with how these issues come up. And what is the correlation to mental health? It's a big, huge correlation to mental health. It's how we're addressing the issues that come up. Kids don't just fight for no reason all the time. There's a lot of pent up things behind that. A lot of psychologists would know that behaviors allude to something deeper going on. So when it comes to these issues and our kids bring them to us on a daily and they are willing to talk to us about the things that they are going through, the things that are causing them hardships, that are causing them to have cloudy vision and how they make their decisions, it's important for us all as a community to be able to amplify these voices, listen to these families. When you have a kid who's constantly getting into trouble, how do we stop that cycle? Do we add to it, or do we continue it? Or do we find ways to shift how we handle these things before these children are labeled and just automatically assumed to be troublemakers when there's always something underlying? So these are the things that I'm learning when it comes to especially the minority youth that I work with. And it's a recurring thing that I see over and over again.
Yeah.
And have on the interview that we do with them,
Mm-hmm.
youth are very aware of how minorities are treated in their community. So one of the questions that we have, one focuses on race and one focuses on LGBTQIA, and it talks about the community, it talks about school itself, and it talks about law enforcement. So there's different questions that we ask them and how they would gauge, do you feel like people are included? How do you feel that people are treated? And you will get their view on everything. You get what they see and you realize that they are completely, absolutely aware of how they've been treated or how their friends have been treated or how strangers have been treated, not from what they see on social media, not from the news, from what they see living in those few blocks that they live in. They're very aware, and that causes a lot of emotions. And I have had those conversations when I'm giving those interviews, and I've met people that stopped going to school because of those experiences. They actually stopped going to school because of that. I mean, I've met so many people that actually have a personal connection to those few questions that have changed the outcome of their life and maybe made it so that they haven't accomplished some of the goals that they'd set out to be.
Thinking about the response that you both just gave, is there anything that you're doing as far as the Workers Grant is concerned to work with schools so that they maybe understand a little bit more? Because I know it's hard with schools sometimes because they're so focused on education, right? And if it's not about education and it's a behavior that they're seeing, they don't really dive deeper all of the time. Like you said, Rose, is always an issue behind the reason why, right? Are you working with the schools in any capacity to try to help ease some of that for the youth in your area, for maybe even the school staff, things of that, so that they understand things of that nature?
Well, actually, that will be in the works for our grant.
Okay.
Absolutely, that is part of some of the goals that we have is working with the students and working with the schools in our area to address some of these issues. And the way we address them will be in a way where we're amplifying student voices and stories. We're not gonna be coming in as like, we're not gonna come in to tell them anything. We're gonna come in to hear what they have to say and what do they think about how their school deals with mental health when it comes up. Like, we want the students to be a part of that process of identifying solutions and needs when it comes to how mental health is received and treated in schools, mental health and behavioral, because they go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
When we had those conversations about when we're going to be, I guess, essentially doing trainings at schools or in the community with law enforcement, anything like that, the number one priority that we have is we're going to make sure that we have youth with us that can give testimony. I feel like if we go in and we don't have youth that can give testimony, it's going to fall flat.
Absolutely.
So if you're trying to change anything in your school system, you can bring in your professional knowledge and your life knowledge as a professional adult or as a peer specialist, but you need to have a couple youth in their testimonies and they need to have a personal connection to that school district. So I think that's when you're going to see a difference made.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, I believe that, you know, most of the people who work in the school, even if they're doing harm, I think that most people really do want to do good by the kids. I think everybody wants to do their best, but kind of we get stuck. So
Even overwhelmed.
Yeah,
there's
even
a lot
overwhelmed.
there's a lot of kids in the
Yes.
schools in the area.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And John, like, I wanted you to tap in on this because you're currently a student at WBA, at Wilkes-Barre Area High School, you know, so I'm sure like you have supports, but what do you think there would be some more supports that would be helpful? Like, you had a lot of experience in your school. Come on, now don't let me bring it up. You bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
That situation where you help somebody. No, he's being shy. It's all right.
I mean, I think something that I've noticed a need in is truancy. I just feel like, you know, truancy happens, they miss a bunch of school, and then, you know, there's kind of always, you know, repercussions that come, and that actually makes it worse. I think the number one thing that we need to keep in mind, and I say this all the time, is do not take any behavior personally. Don't take it as you're being disrespected or anything personal at all. There's a reason for the behavior, and that's it, period. Do not take it personal at all. And I think that if you have somebody who's truant, the priority should be trying to get in and visit them and figure out what's going on and work with them on it. It should not go straight to almost a threatening manner.
Absolutely.
I've been meeting with my younger sister because she was truant from school and she was facing like legal repercussions and things like that. And then, you know, you find out, the school finds out that she's truant because her parent moved out and left her behind in the home. And she was living there with the electricity off without food. And of course, she had no way to get to school. So if somebody had come to the house to visit and see, they would have realized what was going on far sooner than, you know,
Absolutely.
what actually happened with children and youth got involved. So I think that the school could have come in one of those few weeks and, you know, realized what was going on and come in with a mental health approach. When I worked for the treatment court with the youth and we had somebody who was truant, that was my job as a peer specialist. I would go into the home and I would meet with them. And I think that's what needs to happen when you have somebody who's truant. Even when you have somebody that's suspended, hey, they're home anyway. You suspended them. They're stuck at home. Go find them, go talk to them, figure out what's going on.
That would absolutely make a huge difference.
Yes.
Because a lot of kids who get suspended, they don't get to process what has happened, what feelings have come up, why their behaviors are the way they are. And programs like the youth drop-in where they can come in and talk to mentors It's different because I'll sit with these youth and I will talk to them and ask them questions and not judge them, and they will come up with their own understandings of their own behaviors. And they're like, don't tell anybody I just said that, you know? And it's a wonderful to see that these kids can identify what's underneath the behaviors, but you have to give them the opportunity to even speak about it. And in a lot of these situations, especially in the minority groups, those youth are not given that opportunity when they're in the situation, when they're in the office getting in trouble, when they are sent home. They're not actually being given the opportunity to process what is going on underneath. Yeah.
I totally agree. And it's kind of age old. The same things have been happening. It's hard for youth who are in school when they have things going on. It's not the first thing. School isn't the first thing that they're thinking about. Understanding that it's a requirement and all of these things, they're getting grades, pass, fail, but that just adds to the stress, right? But if I'm not eating, or if I'm worried about my brother, my sister, my siblings, if I'm worried about, where I'm going to be staying tonight, things of that nature, it becomes a lot more difficult to focus in school. And if we're not taking care of kids in that way and figuring out those things, it's like you said, those behaviors appear in a whole different way, right? So now they're fighting, now they're being quote unquote disrespectful, all of those things. And like you said, Fallon, it's hard as a human being not to take some of those things personally, right? But that's what I think, your advice is good. We have to work towards that. That was some really good advice. So John, talk to us about your experience with receiving services and how that may have impacted some of the things that you all want to do as far as the grant is concerned.
All right, so let me just I just want to like connect to what y'all was saying a little bit before. When I was in 7th and 8th grade, I didn't really have a home. I was going in between places, finding places to stay and stuff like that. And in school, I was suffering because of that. And nobody really, no teachers, no mentors, no guidance counselor, nobody ever reached out to me and ever asked, hey, why are your grades feeling? Hey, is there anything going on? Hey, can I help you with this? Can I help you with that? There was nobody to help me with that. And it was maybe part of me being an adolescent and me not really being in the right state of mind. I didn't realize that what was going on with me was bad, and I could have found help, and I could have been better. I could have got better in school. I didn't have to almost fail 7th and 8th grade. Like I could have found the help that I needed through a grant like this. Yeah, I lost my thought. So,
Take your time.
So, I mean, with this grant, I want it to be something that really helps the youth, like how I didn't have help. I want there to be peers and specialists to really understand and look at the youth and see that there's stuff going on with them that it's very subtle that people don't, really see because even though I was in those bad situations, I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't like getting into fights or anything like that. I was jolly. I was a jolly kid, you know what I'm saying? But that didn't um that didn't help me through what was going on, Like I'm still kind of like facing that now. I'm still trying to get into the right headspace and really transition into being an adult, and I'm still learning about stuff that goes into that. I'm still learning about the financial help and financial aid and working and scheduling my whole life and my time. And it's this grant. I don't know how to just I'm sorry, I'm not good at talking, but
It's all right.
the support that I have now, like spiritual support, like I go to church now, mentors like Rose and Fallon, those are things I really didn't have at the age of 12 and 13, and nobody really realized that I actually needed it, and nobody really brought out those to my attention. Back in seventh and eighth grade, we didn't have meetings, we didn't go to the auditorium, we didn't have speakers to talk about, hey, if you're in this situation, come to me. Like that wasn't like something that we did in my high school. I went to Myers. That wasn't something that we had. I didn't have so I didn't have spiritual or mental or educational support like I do now. Like so I just want to talk about like educational support. Like that's I've really dove into ever since I've become a traditional youth, but ever since I've become 16 or 17 and 18, I've really been trying to um, better understand the financial world, like our financial world, and how what I need to do to like, kind of survive in this economy, like I didn't know about taxes until I was like 17, 18. I had to file them. I didn't know about that. I didn't know about W-2s. I didn't know about W-4s. I didn't know how to file my taxes. I didn't know about getting money back. I didn't know about having to pay them more money. I didn't know about any of that. But through the support that I got from, you know, from people that I had to talk to, and I had to reach out and be like, hey, can you teach me about this? You know, can you support me through this? Can you teach me something that the school didn't even mention? It wouldn't mention until 12th grade when I'm about to graduate, and I've already been working for ever since I was 16. You know, that wasn't something that I really had. And then there's like I'm gonna say like life support. Like people people like telling me about their experiences in life really um affirm to me of like how I want to live my life and how I need to go about transition and changing and becoming a upstanding citizen, you know, like there's just a lot of support that I didn't have that I want to be able to reach out and give to youth, like it's all it's all connected in some way, if you know what I mean. Like all these supports and all these ideals and other people's thoughts really for at least for me really ties into how I view life and I view support. And I think that if people had the support that I have right now at a younger age, they would really come out of high school or come out of school ready for life. And that's something that I feel like I'm learning very late in life. I'm about to graduate, but I still feel like a lot of this stuff I should have known earlier to better prepare me. Like I'll say outright, I'm not good at saving money, but Miss Rose helping me, especially, and Mr. Ryan, they really helped me to learn the importance of saving my money and the importance of doing saving what I need to save so that I can live a good life. And yeah, that's about all I've got to say.
Oh my God. All right. John, real quick question for you. So when you think about support, right? And before you had support, did you think differently about it than you did after you started to receive it?
So before I had support, I didn't know that support was really a thing. I didn't know that people cared enough about my life and my circumstances to really give me the support that I needed, that the school or my family wouldn't give. I didn't like I didn't think support was something that I needed. I didn't know that it was like, I don't even know, relevant. It wasn't here. It wasn't
Right.
right next to me that I can just go and grab and be like, yo, I got support now. It wasn't something that I had.
So opens your eyes to a whole new world, right? Like I can actually do these things. It's yeah, support is an amazing thing, and I think um the fact that you were able to receive it, that you were willing to receive it, is put you on a track now where um I can sense your passion and wanting to help others and things of that nature. One more question for you, if you don't mind. As far as it went with your school, education wise, you said when you were in seventh and eighth grade, you may have been struggling, came real close to failing, things of that nature. With the support of your support system, were you able to sort of connect with teachers, things of that nature, to advocate for yourself a little bit more and to get the help that you may have needed in school? How did that change?
So I think it was late seventh grade. I started going to the guidance counselor. I don't even remember how I got um, introduced to the guidance counselor, but I went to the guidance counselor and I started talking to him not about my home life, but about how I felt educational wise. And he started to tell me, he started to talk to my teachers for me about how um, I knew that I was struggling, but I didn't know how better I can better help my educational circumstances. Like for instance, we had remedial classes after school. We can stay after school for another hour. The teachers can help us a little bit more. I didn't know that was a thing until my guidance counselor really explained that to me, and I was able to start going back to my classes. I was able to like really start to understand the material that they was presenting me with, because back then I was a slow learner. I didn't realize that my home situation was really affecting um, how much mental strength I had to understand and to listen to what the teachers were telling me. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I can't really tell you right now, but I don't know what my standpoint on education was back then. Like if it was if it was like, oh, I don't care about education, or I do care about education, I didn't really have my own standpoint on how I viewed education, like whether it was relevant to me or not. I just knew that it was something that I had to do. And I like to put my all into everything that I do. So through the guidance counselor support, I really came out and I really started to talk to my teachers about what I was struggling with and how they can help me.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Because I know when you don't know something exists, and then a world kind of gets opened up to you, right? Where people will support you or can support you. You just got to kind of know where to look for it. Um, and for you to be able to do that, at a young age. I mean, it's hard for older people to ask for help. Trust me. Um, but to know that it exists and to be able to ask for it and to be able to speak for yourself, that's an awesome thing. And I wanted to say congratulations on your impending graduation. That's an awesome thing. And uh, to see you doing all of it. For everybody who doesn't know, I've met John in person. He is funny. Just I let his kids vibe. His whole attitude is on point. And he's self-described as jolly. That's John. He always got a smile on his face, laughing, joking. He's a really good dude. Really good dude. We have some questions that was coming into the chat. One of them is Youth Revolution in Lancaster County. And I know that it's not, but I also know that Rose was talking about Youth Revolution should be everywhere. And I know you all are just getting started, but how big do you envision this thing getting for y'all? And just so y'all know, Youth Revolution is in Luzerne County, not Lancaster.
So honestly, let's be real. We hope that it will be a youth-run organization that can provide peer services. So that's pretty big.
Yeah.
We want to hire people. We want to have clientele who are youth in the whole county, and maybe even have hubs, because if we have like a main HQ and we see that there's needs in other parts of our county that are more prevalent, maybe we can even end up having like little hubs in other parts of the county. Like, this is me just kind of like envisioning it.
Right,
you know?
right. Dream big.
Yeah, like an absolute web of support and resources for youth. Like, and the most biggest part of it is the heart. The heart of Youth Revolution will always be with the youth voice, the youth experience, and those youth being able to identify their needs and be a part of creating those solutions for those needs, creating and building these bridges between those needs and those resources, those youth and those spaces. Like, this is how big we want Youth Revolution to be in this area.
It's a realistic ambition, though.
Yeah.
It's a very realistic ambition, because our plan over the next couple of years is we're going to actually have certified peer specialists in every high school in our 2 counties, but also we're branching out to the colleges and universities too.
Nice.
That's, a good place to start, as well as other youth centers. Like, we have the Catholic Youth Center, Youth Drop-In. So because our main focus is trying to be peer run, at getting actual certified peer specialists, our own little army of them, and putting them in all the different schools and different places, then we're already connected.
Yep.
If all those certified peer specialists are associated with Youth Revolution, then everybody is already connected, and that's already something unique that you don't see anywhere else. So it's a very realistic goal. It's something that we're gonna accomplish over the next few years. And so if we can do that in these 2 counties, then that would be a good place to start in your counties. And
Absolutely.
It is so realistic. It is such a realistic
is.
ambition that could be across the state.
Absolutely.
And further.
And as you heard from John's experience, like his experience with having those kinds of supports where peers would share with him life stories that will help him identify, you know what? Whoa, I really can do better. I can get more out of this life. His story alone is just a small part of the impact that we want to see across the board. We want to see more kids being able to totally transform how they view this life experience in a way that empowers them. Like that's what we really want for Youth Revolution.
That's awesome. That's an awesome vision. I do think it's a realistic goal. And I think the idea for having certified peers in a educational setting, oh my God.
Yeah. I saw a question pop up that if we have a website, and we do not have a website right now, but we will. We will get one soon.
Soon.
They're working on it. They're working on it. Excuse me. There were also a question that came in that said, as you did the application or are implementing it, who are your supportive partners that help make the grant work? Are they consumer partners, local government partners, healthcare providers? Just asking because of how you got the buy-in from the community.
It is all of the above, I guess you could say. It started with Wyoming and Luzerne County systems of care. So they are really in charge of all of the mental health services and the grants. So that's where it started. But we also do, I mean, our mentorship is really done through Youth Move PA. So look them up. It's an awesome organization. So a lot of our mentorship is done through there. We also have mentors in systems of care. We have mentors at the Catholic Youth Center. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we're always meeting with agencies. We're always having people from different agencies, different programs come in to meet with us, or we're out in the community. So it's almost like we are associated with anyone that is in that realm, and we're getting associated, like I said, with schools. So I guess our mentorship comes from different areas. I mean, we had Educational Opportunity Center come and speak with us, and then we had an event last weekend and she was there. So it's not just we're reaching out to these agencies and learning about what they have so we know that what they have. It's really reaching out to them, and we end up creating a relationship, and they become somebody that comes to our events and somebody that comes to the drop-in center. So I guess we have mentors and we have partners all over the place.
Yeah.
Because everybody's interested in becoming part of this in some way.
So like in our actual cohort too, is a lot of the organizations that we already work with, like Fallon said, like we have our psych rehab through Children's Service Center. We have who else? We have Hope. We have multiple different organizations. We have Northeast Counseling. We have juvenile probation is part of the table too. Yeah, we have like a big table of partners that all work with this age group, and from them working with this age group, this is how we are all tied together and how we support each other. So we get that this is how we also get our interviews too, through these partnerships, when they are getting youth and young adults in that fit that age range that we work with. We go in and we interview them, and then we go back and interview them 3 months later. And this is kind of how we have some of our partnerships, and this is how they're functioning at this moment too. So the partnerships represent those spaces that are considered resources. We're also measuring how that resource is actually benefiting that youth at the same time. So that's kind of how our partnerships are working right now too.
Right. I mean, for you to be able to have those partnerships with providers and different agencies and organizations is awesome. To be able to get some of the research that you need done, ask, surveys, questions, things of that nature. I mean, it's awesome the way that you are sort of promoting yourselves and getting out there and mostly just by being involved. That's an awesome thing. That's really cool. So Deb also wanted to know, how do you encourage those kids who apply to get involved, who may have given up on volunteering because they haven't heard back from specific organizations, things of that nature?
So the question is, how do we engage kids who've lost interest?
Yes.
I think the one up that we have, I guess, because I'm always having people ask, how do you have all these youth that are involved? What the heck can I do? Our meetings don't look like that. The one up that we have is that it's youth run from the very heart. So I think when you create something that the youth have created, and it's something that they've worked on, and everything that we do has been agreed to by them, that's where the advantage is. They maybe they have tried volunteering in the past. Maybe they have a little bit more apathy toward that now because of different experiences. When they realize that that we are completely youth run from the bottom up, and also when they have helped create it or contributed that in some way, that's where the advantage is. They that sort of hesitancy goes away pretty quickly when they realize that we're different because we're run by the youth. There's less worries there.
And to add to that, you got to also consider like when we, depending on who's asking the youth, right? Is that youth in a space where they are socially motivated by other youth to do it as well? Or are they kind of going through their own recovery journeys, however that might look for whatever organization that is? Are they being put in those spaces to be challenged in that kind of way before you even ask them? Are they having the opportunity to just think about things a little deeper, talk about things with other people their age, being heard? Are they able to see that their voices matter before we ask them to do these big things? Because I'm pretty sure that if we asked John to do this stuff before he even was able to be in a space with other youth who also care about this stuff too, I'm not sure if he would have been as willing to. I mean, you can speak for yourself, but
Okay.
you know what I mean? If you was in that kind of a space, like honestly, would it be easy or hard to pull you in depending on kind of situationally based, like what you're already doing in life, or what's going on with you?
I feel like it definitely would have been harder. I mean, I don't know. It all depends on how like you approach the youth about certain subjects like this. You know, like I wouldn't be in this if it wasn't Miss Rose that really talked to me and really explained to me what my role would be in this. So I would think it would be harder if it wasn't like a youth or a transitional age youth, somebody that knows what's going on, really explaining it, but don't get down to my level. So
Now, I guess the question you're asking yourself, like the question you're asking is, where do you find these youth leaders? But the answer is, you don't find them, you build them, right? You have to build the youth leaders. You don't just, you're not gonna go out in the community and find them. You know, you have to build them over time.
And then just another important point is allowing youth the space to decide for themselves. If they do decide this is not for me right now, am I going to continue to like try to get them to do it, or am I going to respect what they need in that moment?
Mhm.
And in turn, in another way, building trust with them still. Because just because you're like, yo, we need you to do this, I need you to do this, it doesn't matter. The most important part is, what does that youth need in that moment? Is that youth recovering right now? Does that youth have the capacity for what you're asking them to do? And how does it relate to them? So if they cannot directly see the impact, no matter how, some youth, you can explain this to them and it makes so much sense. Like, yeah, your voice will change how we do things, but it still doesn't connect with them on a personal level because they haven't seen their voice do that yet.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to also build smaller opportunities for them to do that and see that in order to really be able to connect with them, whether they walk away or not. If they walk away, but you still connect with them, you still always will have the opportunity for them to rebuild back into their leadership qualities, reminding them of their strengths, giving them opportunities to exercise those things outside of what you need from them first, to identify with leadership on a personal level first. So it's multifaceted how you engage with youth and how you re-engage youth once they like decide they don't feel like, a lot of times too, if a youth walks away, they don't feel like their voice matters. They don't have confidence in themselves sometimes. And they're like, you want me to do what? So it's like, how do you build that? That is really what it comes down to, is making sure that you're building spaces and places for these youth to explore those skills and qualities before we ask them to give them to us immediately, you know? So that, yeah.
That is great advice. Thank you. And our last question comes from Doris. She wanted to know if you had any insights regarding the Latino youth in your community.
I saw that question. Yeah. And I was gonna answer it while I was talking, but I just I'm glad. But yeah, no, so regarding the Latino community and the youth, like the issues definitely between all the minority groups, but they're very closely related. And in our programming, we actually do get Latino youth as well. And we also have we have the leadership groups, and then we have the regular drop-in group, right? So the leadership would be the NAACP. It's the same. Giving these youth the opportunities and spaces to be themselves is what helps amplify their voice. And we've had youth who came in who did not speak any English, and I don't speak Spanish, but I'm not gonna make you feel alienated. So I just pulled out my phone and Google Translated, had a full conversation with a youth who didn't really have English as one of his tools at the moment, you know? So being able to connect our communities is extremely important because a lot of the issues overlap, and creating these spaces again allow for these relationships to bloom and bud. So in our NAACP Youth Council, we have leadership that is Spanish, we have leadership that is Black. In our youth drop-in program, we have participants who are Black, we have participants who are Hispanic, and the issues tend to be very, very similar. But of course, there's the nuances, cultural nuances involved, which we learn by creating the community, the spaces to talk, the spaces to come together. So in regards to the Latino community, like we are very much in a space to be involved with also helping meet the needs of that community as well. And we would encourage, if you guys want to get involved as well, please do reach out to us. We could use more support. Bilingualists would be awesome too. Like when we do come across more Hispanic youth, and when I do interviews, I come across Hispanic youth as well. So the Hispanic and Latino community is just as important as any other community when we talk about mental health, and the statistics are very similar. Very much so.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. That was our last
Paul, let me
question.
just interrupt for a second here.
Sure.
In response to what Rose was saying, I just put in contact information for each of the people who are sitting at the table today, and for Joe Kloss, who's the grant director. If you did have any specific questions for anyone, they're welcome to hear from you. They're happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Nancy. And thank you, Fallon, John, and Rose, for a very enlightening presentation. We appreciate you having this conversation with us, answering a ton of questions, and wish you all the best with Youth Revolution and everything that you guys are doing up there in Luzerne County. And so much so that we hope that it spreads statewide sooner than later. But we know we're going to give y'all some time. We're going to give y'all some time. All right. So with that, I will turn it over to Nancy. And she is going to give us some information on our next webinar. You're on mute, Nancy.
Wait. Oh, okay, here I am. Yes, amazing job. And I want to thank you all so much for your time today. I'd like to make a comment about John. He said something about, oh, I'm not a speaker. And I just want to dissuade you from that idea, John. A speaker is someone who talks to us from the heart, who is open, who is honest, who is true to his beliefs. And you showed us all of that. And I know you just turned 18. I can't imagine what you're going to look like in 10 years and 20 years from now. And people are going to say, I remember him. He's something. And there's Rose, who has been your mentor, and I suspect will be for time to come. There's Fallon, who has been through hell and back and is standing and sitting upright and with us today. So proud of you all. And thank you for being here. That's my personal statement. Now, my job is to say, please fill out the evaluation. The evaluation is the reason why people like Rose and John and Fallon are with us today. And I personally will say to you, I read every single one of them. And then I make sure that other people read them too and share them in meetings. So what you have to say is important to us. And please let us know what you have to say. I am also excited to share our next webinar that's coming up. It's called the title is Creative Health, Music as a Healing Tool. And Todd Heineken is going to be our presenter, and he's a personal friend, and he is one of the first people in the world to have gotten this master's in creative health in a study that was done in London, and that's where he went for this education. And he is this week in New York City talking to a group from Carnegie Hall, and the importance of music as it is at the intersection of songwriting, art, and storytelling. I bet Rose would like this, and our physical and emotional well-beings. And so we're very fortunate to have him come to speak to us on Monday, June 17th. I should put that link. Do you have that open, Jamal? Can you put that link for me in the chat so that I don't get distracted? And as I was saying, Todd is a musician, and that's he's internationally known. But his work that is with children and with children with mental health diagnosis is extraordinary. John mentioned something about trauma in his younger life. You're not going to get over that overnight. You're not going to get over that. I can tell you about a trauma, about something that happened to me when I was a teenager, which is a very long time ago. And it's not gone. It doesn't leave. Whatever trauma you have experienced is with you forever. And with any luck, it makes you stronger. It makes you better. And we all need the right people around us to get through and take advantage of what happens to us instead of letting it beat us down. And so he will, and Todd's also going to talk about with his work that he does in what's called the Lullaby Project, which is songs that are written for babies, a lot of them that are in the hospital. And it's a beautiful story. And thank you, Jamal, for getting that link into the chat for me. And if you follow that link, you will also have an opportunity to see the other upcoming. We still have 6 more webinars before the end of our grant year, which is August. And I encourage you all to participate. I thank you all for what you have shared with us in the Q&A with the chat. And at this moment, I'm just real proud to be here. Jamal, what else was I going to say? What else was I going to say?
I think you covered it all, Nancy. I think you covered it all. We like to thank everybody for attending today, as always. We look forward to seeing you all next time. Again, thank you to our presenters, Fallon, John, and Rose. Amazing as always. And that's it. Have a great weekend, everyone. Be safe out there, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and thank you to Youth Revolution. Keep on keeping on. Yes, please. Thank you.